Hey, it's your professional sarcastic man and seeker of attention, Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Whatcha Toku About Reviews, where I'll be reviewing 3 ongoing Tokusatsu series: Lupinranger vs. Patranger, Kamen Rider Zi-O, and Kami no Kiba Jinga. So as always, let's start off with Power Rangers Cops and Robbers. So at episode 38 of Lupinrangers, Lupinrangers and Patrangers are waiting for another piece of the Lupin Collection, Victory Striker, to arrive from space, and at the same time a Ganglar with the ability to control vehicles takes control of said collection piece. So overall it was an okayish episode. Didn't particularly it wasn't particularly a good episode. Okay. It definitely seemed like they wanted to give the Patrangers a push in this episode, but as always, the Lupinrangers got a lot of the attention. It was slightly a Noel-focused episode. I feel like they wanted to kind of resolve the whole... The rest of the Patrangers distrust Noel because of his connections to the Lupinrangers and because he was working on both teams. It does seem like they wanted to resolve that, but they don't 100% do that. It seemed like they had an idea. They didn't 100% execute it. I could see the intentions, but in my opinion, it wasn't done well. And in this episode, Zamigo and Destra do stuff, and by stuff I mean Zamigo only appears for 2 scenes. One because of the plot, the second to set up the next episode's plot, and Destra is an overglorified bodyguard. As usual, that is his role, but that's all there is to that character, is an overglorified bodyguard. And we're introduced to a new form for Lupin X, Super Lupin X. I understand the symbolism with that. It's while the form itself is supposed to be police themed, it's for the Patrangers. The mech that is used for it, which is part of the Victory Striker, is supposed to be for the Patrangers, so the form is police-based, turret cannon police themed, but he uses it as Lupin X, and it is supposed to be the whole, he is on both teams, so it's a kind of a combination of both. But honestly, I would have preferred if it was for Pattern X, because it would have just worked much better. I feel like because the form itself is just a huge piece of armor just strapped onto him, and it's just primarily gold, almost about 98% of it is gold, apart from like the red on the holes for the cannon, and on the buttons, and the black handles and trigger. It's 90%, over 90% gold. So I thought it would have worked much better with Pattern X. Much like the overall theme of the episode, I kind of saw what their intentions were. Just didn't feel like it was executed properly. It was like Super Lupin X, just kind of, it just appears, it happens, and that's it. And there's also a new mech used by the Lupinrangers. That's still another problem. While the Patrangers are slowly getting more attention, it's still too much focus on the Lupinrangers. They have too much time, too much screen time. I'd rather it's an equal amount of screen time, and this did seem like more of a Patranger-esque focused episode, so it would have made more sense for the Patrangers to use it instead of the Lupinrangers, but it just seems like from the get-go the Lupinrangers were the more popular, so unfortunate as it may be, it's just how the series has been going. So it's an okayish episode. It had a few problems. At least I had a few problems with it. It was okayish at best. Next week's episode, Zamigo actually does something for once with the plot, and we'll see how that one goes. Kamen Rider Zi-O Episode 9. So this episode is the start of the O's tribute, but it's also a pseudo X8 tribute, and you'll see why. So in this episode, a new king, a new Another Rider has arrived in the form of Kuroto Dan from Kamen Rider X8. He has become Another Rider OOO and has declared independence from his Dan Foundation in Japan. He is now he's the king of his own nation and will convert anyone who disagrees with him into a obedient servant in the form of pretty much the grunt enemies in O's, the yummies, the white yummies, the plain mummy looking ones. So overall, it's a fun episode. It's good to see Kuroto back. He's a fun character, or should I say, Kuro King, because he's now a king. So instead of Kuroto, it's Kuroto O. O as in king in Japanese. It's I will admit it is a very good pun, and it's good to see all the references to O's as well, like the time jackers make Kuroto another rider because they need someone who has the ambition to become a king or to become greater than they want to be. Kuroto has always had that, him wanting to be the game master or pretty much god of everyone in X8, so it's very fitting to his character, and also plays off the whole desire and greed theme from O's. So very smart there. And then in this episode, Sougo decides, well, I want to see what kind of king he's going to be, so I'm going to learn from him. And it kind of brings forth this cheap drama. Near the end, him and guys get into a disagreement and they fight each other. That's the only part of the episode I didn't particularly care for. It does come off as cheap, as we know that Sougo is just pretending to be Kuroto's ally to probably defeat him later on. And knowing previous Zi-O episode, it's just once it's resolved, guys is just going to be annoyed. It's going to berate Sougo a little and then just help him anyway. Because, the king of being butthurt, it won't belong to guys. That belongs to the End in Superhero Taisen. If you haven't seen that, he pretty much becomes a villain at the end of the film just because Decade pretended to be a villain and trampled their friendship. I'm not kidding. That's literally how he becomes a villain, because he's butthurt. Pretty much. So overall, fun episode. Didn't particularly like that cheap drama. Zi-O was slightly getting better. I do kind of like the Gen armor. It is basically just a recolor of the X8 armor without the giant hammers. The giant hammers are a bit too comical, in my opinion. I didn't particularly care for the hammers. I would have preferred if one was a hammer and one was a sword, like X8's weapon, where it's a hammer which also doubles as a sword when you activate one of the buttons to transform it into such. So the armor is pretty good. It's okay in my opinion, and there's several references to O's as well. Like I mentioned already, Kuroto, the whole greed, desire. Dr. Maki's doll can be seen on his table when Guys and Tsukuyomi travel back to 2016, and of course you have some of the returning characters. You have Hina, who still works on clothes, making clothes, is now a servant to Kuroto, and then Eiji returns at the end, which is just a common trope with Zi-O. The returning characters will have a cameo in the first episode, like very short, and then they will have a proper role in the second episode. So typical as always. And And also, apart from the O's references, there's also the X-Aid references. There's one when Kuroto is getting his clothes fitted. He's thinking of a theme, and he's just like, "How about zombie? Zombie seems really good with me. Yeah, I really like that idea. You know, the obvious reference to Dangerous Zombie and Zombie Gamer level 10 from X-Aid. Kuroto's like pretty much a first immortal form. So it's good to see that. So overall with the episode, definitely a fun episode. It's always good to see the meme lord back. Kuroto is a great character, and the actor has such a great time with him. Kami no Kiba Jinga episode 3. So in this episode, we follow kind of the story of a horror, of a wrestler who has become a horror and is just continuing as in this kind of like secret, almost like underground wrestling scene. And it's kind of similar to episode 1 where Jinga is not the main focus, although this was executed more effectively than episode 1. As I've said in episode 1, it focused too much on that schoolgirl drama aspect and not a lot about like Jinga and the overall plot. While this one did it better. I did like this whole story of how this man, he lost his family, and as such he became a horror. And even in the episode, Jinga proposes to Fusa that maybe not everyone deserves to be a horror. No one deserves to be a horror, regardless of how evil they are, how much malicious intent, bad karma, whatever that they have. They don't deserve to be a horror. And this was shown with the horror of the episode. He was just a man who lost his family, fueled by grief and rage. He became the host to a horror, and that's just it. So I did like that episode. Jinga was kind of slightly sidelined until the end of the episode. So it was a okay to good episode in my opinion. Next episode, they're going to be dealing with representatives from the Watchdog, guessing either another knight or priest, who are investigating Jinga's ability to return horrors back to normal. So we'll see how that one goes. And that's it for this episode of Whatcha Toku About Reviews. Next week is probably not going to happen. There probably won't be a video, or because Lupinranger and Kamen Rider Zi-O are taking a break because of sports. Japan really loves sports, so there's no episode next week for those two. I'm not sure about Jinga. Jinga usually goes on at a later time, so there's possibly still an episode for that, episode 4 of that one. We'll wait and see. If there's a video, there's a video. If there's not, there's not. And that's just how it is. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.